Thank you so much, songsters. It just gets the blood flowing, doesn't it? This morning, we had an interruption in our service, didn't we? In our worship meeting. And I know that a lot of you probably have talked about what happened with Jim up here and Barb, because we were talking about it. And my mind went back, as I thought about that happening, to an incident that happened to me. Now, it's hard to compare them apples to apples because, I don't think mine was nearly as serious. I had spent the morning working in Magic Kingdom in Disney World, and it was very hot. I was probably out too long in the sun and had too little water. And my wife and Taylor had taken me out to lunch, and we sat around the table, and as we were waiting for our food, I didn't feel so good. In fact, I wasn't really feeling hungry at all. Feeling a little lightheaded, and I said, it's time to get out to the car. So I said, hope you don't mind, box up my meal. I'm going to go and sit in the air conditioner in the car and just cool down. I didn't get 3 steps before my legs gave out. The next thing I knew, I was laying on the floor looking up, covered with sweat, and 2 men that I had never met before were looking at me and asking me all sorts of medical questions, and Beth was standing a little bit back with this look of absolute terror in her eyes, thinking that her life might all of a sudden instantly change just then and there, that her life was never going to look the same again. And I suppose when Barb was standing up here, she had a very similar feeling, wondering if she'd ever see her husband again, alive. Some of us tonight might be in a situation that is so frustrating, so deep and seemingly hopeless that we can't see our way out of it. We're so overwhelmed with the problem that we can't even envision a solution. I spent some time in southern Africa, and when we were driving down the road, the man who was sitting next to me was talking about the antelope-type creatures that were on the side. They called them kudu. And he said, it's very interesting. We were driving down this one-lane road in the middle of this kind of forest area. He said the kudu can jump straight up in the air and over. They could actually clear the road and jump clean over the car as we were driving along. So powerful is their jump, and so far they can jump that they could just spring up and all of a sudden just be over the road. But they figured out something about the kudu. The kudu will not jump if they can't see where they're going to land. If they can't see the destination, they won't even try it, even though they could easily clear a fence or a row of bushes. And they found this out about the kudu, and that was an easy way to contain them, is just to put up a fence that's just high enough that they can't see over it, even though they could very easily just clear it in one jump. If you feel trapped by your circumstances, maybe you're saying, if only I could see a safe place to land out there and take whatever leap of faith that I need to just to get out of here. I need to see a way out. Some indication that this thing won't go on forever. Some kind of a sign that everything is going to be okay. Beth was standing over me as I was laying on the floor, trying to get my wits about me. And she said, "Do you know who I am?" Wondering if she was going to get any kind of satisfactory response or any response at all. What did I say to you, honey? Do you remember? She doesn't remember. Okay. I said, "You're the love of my life." And all of a sudden she realized that everything was going to be okay. A wise person once said, "If you're going through hell, keep going." Makes sense, right? If you're going through hell, don't sit down. Don't just stay there. Keep going. A famous preacher once said, "Faith goes up the stairs that love has built and looks out the windows that hope has opened." Faith is kind of an action word. Love is something that builds bridges so that we can get from one day's destination to another. But hope is a very visual word. We can imagine what the truth will be. We can imagine what the future will be. We can imagine what will be when all this craziness around me is over. To me, that's what hope looks like. It's an opportunity to see the other side of the fence, even though you can't really see it. Seeing it enough that I'm going to take the step that I need to go and get out of this situation, to find a solution, to look toward God, to open my eyes. I'm going to refer to just a few verses in Mark chapter 8 about a man who needed his eyes opened. It starts in verse 22. They came to Bethsaida, and some men brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus said, "Do you see anything?" He looked around and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. I imagine that this man walked a little bit differently after he met Jesus. Not just because there was a miracle and he got to meet the God of the ages, but because his eyesight was restored and because he could see where he was going. And he could move along quicker. He could step around obstacles instead of wondering whether he was going to trip over them. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. I want to see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, "Holy, holy, holy." Do you need God to open up your eyes today? Maybe there's somebody who needs prayer because you're going through something. And it's difficult to see the other side of the fence. It's difficult. You don't have the eyes of hope yet because you're so overwhelmed by your circumstances. If you could use prayer tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm just going to ask you to stand where you are, just to say, "Yeah, Tom, I need my eyes open. I need to see a solution through this." Would you stand? If you're going through a situation like that, where you're having a difficult time finding hope. Well, let's sing this chorus together. Open our eyes, Lord. We want to see Jesus, because he's the one who can open up our eyes and give us a vision of what life can be outside of whatever circumstance we find ourselves. He can give us the hope that we so desperately need. Let's sing together. Open our eyes, Lord. We want to see Jesus, to reach out and touch him, and say that we love him. Open our ears, Lord, and help us to listen. Open our eyes, Lord. We want to see Jesus. Dear Lord, I thank you for that story. It tells of that man who had his sight restored, and at first he wasn't seeing very clearly, and then you touched him again, and he could see again. I pray that you will just reach out to that one. just needs to have you open up their eyes of hope just a little bit more today. And I pray that you might help them to find you faithful to their prayer, to their request. They're begging you to just show up, God, and help me out of this mess. We thank you for the hope that you give us. And we thank you for ministering with us tonight. We pray in Jesus' name. Open our eyes, Lord. We want to see Jesus, to reach out and touch Him, and say that we love Him. Open our ears, Lord, and help us to live.